Welcome back, Exiles. This is my top 5 tips. And when I say top 5, they're kind of like 3 or 4 tips in one category. Things I wish I knew within my first 25 to 30 hours playing this game. Path of Exile 2, absolutely addicted, having a wicked time with it. I think this stuff would really help you out if you are new to Path of Exile or just, well, everyone's new to Path of Exile 2. I'm going to go through topics like damage stacking. I completely, not really bricked, but completely lost a lot of damage by just putting the wrong equipment on and the way things are stacking through. So I'm going to go through some keywords to get you going, because not going to be a whole bunch of build guides out right yet, apart from like the Path of Exile, like experts, veterans. And the fun part of this game is making your own builds. So understanding how the keywords work and damage stacking goes will help you make your own decisions. Resistances, spells, big conversation about items, and some stuff about your trials and your ascendancy. Cool, let's get into it. But before starting, this video is sponsored by Raycon, and they're here to help with your holiday shopping. Now is the time to order the perfect gift, Raycon's everyday earbuds. They come in a variety of vibrant colors for the perfect surprise on Christmas morning. And if you're still working over the holiday period, but the family's not, the active noise cancellation can really help block out that background noise while you focus on your holiday deadlines.
And the ergonomic design fits the widest range of ears, sweat resistant, and they won't come out. And the cool protective cases can survive the harshest conditions.
Handle your holiday shopping right now before December 15th, whether it's for home use or exercise. Everybody has a use for Raycon's everyday earbuds, making them a fantastic gift. Go to buyraycon.com/Myelin to save big for the holidays and get up to 25% off site-wide. That's right, you'll get up to 25% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/Myelin. Okay, our first topic is sort of damage stacking and keywords. The thing you need to understand about PoE and PoE 2 is that everything means something. Everything means something very specifically. And if you understand some of the very basic forms of this, will really help you out with making decisions in your passive skill tree and what abilities, skills you should put on. The first one that's from PoE 1 is the difference between increase and more. So when you see the keyword like increase, so this says 3% increased skill speed, and this says 3% increased skill speed as well. When you see the word increase, it adds together. It's additive. So in that case, you'll get 3% plus 3% for just those two nodes to give you a total of 6%. Okay, so it would increase your base stat by 6%. So you get your base attack speed, skill speed, times 1.06, okay? So it's adding them together. The reason why that is important is because there's another keyword that stacks it multiplicatively. So the other keyword, if you have a look at some of these, let me have a quick look here. So this support gem has the keyword more, 50% more freeze buildup. This one here, martial tempo, actually this is a good example. This does 25% more attack speed. So this is looking at attack speed. These were looking at skill speed, and skill speed includes attack speed. So the way that ends up working out is our ones that have increase get added together like that, 3 plus 3. And then our one that has more, how much was it? 25% more actually gets multiplied. 1.25. Okay, so more is stacks multiplicatively. And if we had another item that said, give another 25% more attack speed, it gets multiplied again. So in general, when you're looking at like stacking things together, if you see more, you should understand that that's stacking multiplicatively, and that's like a keyword you should look out for. And that's something you should prioritize over increase if you have to choose between them. Okay, let's talk about some more keywords. The difference between conversion or converts and gain. So this skill here says converts 60% of physical damage to cold damage. Just remember, if you want some tool tips, you hold Alt down and you can hover over things. You can even like go further than that. You just click here, you left click, and you can like look at multiple tool tips. Really, really handy. So anyway, conversion says converts 60% of physical damage to cold damage. Now, unless otherwise stated, these skills are going to take your stats from your weapon. So this weapon has physical damage on it. Physical damage 19 to 39. And this skill is going to convert 60% of that physical damage to cold damage. And the reason why this is important is you lose, that physical damage is no longer there. It's just cold. 60% of it becomes cold. For the remaining 40% is now physical. So this is how I stuffed up, and why it's important to understand that is I found I always get confused with the rarity. Common, magic, rare. I found a rare item. I was like, cool, it's got more damage on it, but it's all elemental damage. Elemental 4 to 6, 13 to 54. I equipped it. I was like, okay, I should be doing way more, right? Because this is only physical damage 9 to 39. But my skills need the physical damage to convert. And so I was not getting any cold damage because there's literally no physical damage on here to convert. And then all my support gems were beefing up cold damage. So completely tanked some of my stuff. And the great thing about this game is you really do have to pay attention to how everything is synergizing. So convert is like that. It removes one damage type and replaces it with a new damage type. Now, the difference between that and gain, okay, here, so cold infusion says attacks gain 25% damage as extra cold damage. So in this scenario, gain doesn't replace any of your damage types. You get it in addition to it. So in this case, you get an additional 25% as cold damage, and the previous damage stats remain where they are. So that's the difference between conversion, it's going to remove a damage type and make it something else. Gain's going to be on top of your damage type. Okay, the last couple of keywords I want to talk about for this category is difference between a flat increase and a percentage increase in your damage types. So, for example, this quarterstaff has a mod that says a 46% increased physical damage. Now you know that it's the word increase. So if you see other things that have increased physical damage on it, you know it's going to stack additively together. But I think the important thing is when you're leveling that you actually have a spread of like a percentage increase and a flat damage increase, because if you have a low physical damage, it doesn't really matter how much you increase it percentage rise. You're like, okay, you get like 100% increase, but if you're only doing 2 damage, you're not going to end up with much damage. So I think it's important to then make sure when you're looking at mods, especially when you get a little bit higher and you have more mods on your gear, that maybe you have something that adds a flat damage. So this adds 6 to 12 fire damage, which is a flat damage being added to it. And then you hopefully get a percentage increase on top of that too. So ideally, it'd be great if I had adds fire damage and then adds a percentage fire damage increase too. So you want to increase your base stat and then also have a percentage increase on top of that. And I think between all those like keywords, you're probably often racing with just having a bit better look at your passive skill tree and your items or your equipment, knowing the difference between increase and more, knowing the difference between conversion and gain, and then just looking out for flat damage versus percentage increase damage. Okay, let's talk about the next really big category, which is resistances. I think coming from other games, sometimes you're like, oh, resistances neither here or there. Like, they help you a little bit. They're like nice to haves. Wrong. In PoE, resistances matter a lot, and they're hugely beneficial. You have your own resistances to damage types, and enemies have their own resistances to damage types. You can open your character menu and you can see the levels of resistances that you have, like fire, cold, lightning, and chaos. And I mean, also your armor, I guess, is technically like a resistance to physical damage. Fire is going to be resistance to fire damage, cold to cold damage, lightning to lightning, chaos to chaos. Now, when you, the way that you increase your resistances, and if you are getting stuck at a boss, this is kind of the thing that I was neglecting and that you'd likely need to have a look at. It's really obvious what the boss is using. Like if they're shooting ice, they're using cold, or you're getting lit on fire, they're using fire. So try to match your resistances to the boss that you're fighting if you are having troubles. And there's multiple ways to start building up your resistances. Your armor can roll with resistance on it. So for example, this piece has fire resistance on it. Jewelry can roll with resistance. So we have cold resistance here. I I'm pretty sure all this can roll with resistance too, so you have your amulets as well. Your belt, once you've got your belt and you have a charm slot on it, you open up this section down here, and you can also put on charms that will give you resistance. So all your like armor equipment, you can start looking for resistance on it, and especially as you're leveling, this is kind of the things you want to be looking out for. Another big one that I made a huge mistake is socketed sets. So now items drop with these sockets that you can place runes on. So these boots have some sockets on them, and I can put a desert rune, which is going to give me some more fire resistance. And this is kind of where I was stuck because I sold all my common gear that had sockets on them when I first picked them up. So as you progress the campaign, you will unlock the salvage bench. And so I would keep all your socketed gear just blank. Don't just put a rune in it like I just did then. Because I didn't actually read the tooltip. You can't take them back out once you socket the runes in. But if you have all these commons with sockets on them, you actually come over here, you click on this, and you can salvage it. I might as well just salvage this now. And that will give you Artificer's Shard. You get 10 of them, and you can place sockets on your other gear. So once I get 10 of these, I can place a socket on the gear I'm using, and then I can add a resistance into it. So overall, if you are struggling with a certain boss or a certain area, start really paying attention to what element or what damage type they are using, and start building into that damage type until you get to, later in the game and you've got resistances against everything. Now, of course, bosses and monsters have their own resistances, and this is what I've kind of just struggled with in the Ascendancy Trials, and something I wasn't really aware of, and I didn't just work this out until just now. You can actually see the resistances of characters, other players, and this looks exactly the same as when you fight bosses. If you have a look at the top of the screen here, Zoxy level 15, there's these little symbols underneath the name, and you'll see this on bosses too. And so there's a fire symbol, there's a cold symbol, there's a lightning, and there's like an armor symbol. When it's gray, it means they have some resistance to that. So Zoxy level 15 here is resistant to fire, cold, and lightning. And the gold tier means they've probably got a lot of armor on, so they're resistant to physical damage. Now, if any of those ones were red, it means they have a weakness to it. So when you start getting to like your Ascendancy Trials, you'll find that some of those bosses are really resistant to your attacks. Like I've found that I keep coming up against Medusa, and I'm using cold, like these ice attacks, and they are incredibly resistant to it. And so these damage attacks become worthless. But they are weak against something like fire. So then now I've started to put like on some other spells so I can take advantage of their weaknesses. So red is weak, and the terminology is probably actually different. It's probably like it's probably not weak, it's probably negative. It's probably really negative resistance, and then silver's probably positive resistance, and then gold is probably like super positive resistance. Regardless, as you're leveling, you want to be paying attention to your resistances and the boss's resistances, and that will really help out. It's some of the things that like really stopped me from progressing, caught me up on a couple bosses and activities. Okay, for my next category, I want to talk about skills and skill gems. And the first thing is that any class can use every skill as long as you meet the requirements. When you hover over something, you'll see it has a requirement. So this one requires level 14. It also requires a quarterstaff. So you'll find that some skills you need to have a certain weapon on. But what is huge, and this is what I didn't know immediately, and this really would have helped me getting through Act 1, is that elemental skills and occult skills don't require any weapon to use. And so you can really round out your build as long as you have the requirements for the stat points. So in this case, it's intellect. And for me, because I was playing a monk, I have intellect and dexterity, so this wasn't an issue to actually have some of these skills. You can freely use these without having to have any weapon requirements, just stat requirements. And for me, this really rounded out my build so I can support the other things that I was doing. So just keep that in mind early game. If you start to get stuck and you have some of the stat point requirements, you can actually start using either elemental or occult to complement your main kind of like weapon build, right? Cool. The other thing I would say is experiment a lot. You get a lot of skill gems. You'll see like all my stuff is at like level 6. You'll get, every time you're progressing through the campaign, you'll get enough skill gems that you can pretty much unlock every like main skill for your class and level it out and just see what you like. The only thing I would say is that support gems are really important. So support gems are what you slot into your skills that buff them up. These I find, I don't know if they're not as common or if I just used all mine straight away, but I would, if I was cruising, I would definitely use your support gems, like use some. But if you're not having a hard time, I think it's worth just holding a couple back and not using them straight away. Because there's definitely at times I've got to a boss and I'm like, oh great, they're resistant to cold and I'm literally just using cold skills and all my support gems were cold skills. And so then when I wanted to put on like a fire skill, I didn't have any support gems for it. And I really wish I just had one or two that I could change my build and easily put a support gem in. So I reckon go nuts with your skill gems. Just try everything, do anything, see what works out for you. Use your support gems a little bit, and if you're cruising along, I reckon just keep a couple in reserve for when you hit like a roadblock and you might want to change your build. Okay, for one of the hardest topics, which is why I've got my notepad here, talking about items, what you should loot, what you should disenchant, what you should sell. Just a word of warning here. I think everyone might be a little bit different for this, and I don't think this has really been sorted out yet. This is obviously like the big thing about PoE is just the enormous amount of loot that you get. And in PoE 1, there are very complex loot filters that you plug into the game that you prioritize what loot you even see, because you get so much trash. So this is like a huge topic, and I've done my best to just give you my original thoughts on what you should prioritize in the earlier game as you progress through the campaign. But please let me know what you are doing, because I think this is probably the best like conversation around this topic. What are you picking up? What are you selling? What are you dismantling? And what are your kind of rules of disenchanting? And what are your rules of thumb for this? Cool. My first rule is this. Rares are not necessarily better. They often are, but not always. Now, this was the mistake that I made. I found this rare, or maybe I crafted this rare. It had lightning damage on it, or it had elemental damage on it. I was like, great, it does more damage than my other one, but it completely it did not work with my skills. They were all scaling off physical damage and converting it to cold damage. Same with my support gems, and I'm like wondering why I'm not doing any damage. So just be mindful that when you see that shiny rarity and you pop it on, make sure that it's actually still suiting the skills that you're trying to build up. I think this is the fantastic part about the game. While rarity is important, it's not just about slapping on something with a bigger number, but making sure it works in your build. That's point number one. Point number two with items is vendors are really powerful now. This is one of the intentional changes they made. Make sure you check vendors for gear that you can buy. Every time you level up, every time you come back to town, you can, I think it only changes when you level up, but you know, have a look. As you get on the game, you can even have vendors that have random items that you can buy as well. And you can just roll the dice for getting something really good. I think I'm actually going to go towards doing this more now than disenchanting stuff. So that was kind of my next topic is, do you sell things, right? Do you sell things and get gold? By the way, it's not very clear how to sell things when you first start. You literally just drag it over there. It tells you how much gold it's worth, or you can control left click and it'll automatically sell it to the vendor and you'll get gold back. So you can either sell things or you can disenchant. When you disenchant, the basics for this right now is if you disenchant magic items, so this is the blue items, you're going to get transmutation shards. You get 10 shards, you get an orb, and that orb will, so orb of transmutation will upgrade a normal, so like the gray items, to a magic item with one modifier. Okay, and then you can add a new modifier with orb of augmentation. So you dismantle magics, and then you can upgrade your commons to a magic. So you're getting the materials to convert stuff to a magic. And the same applies for your rares. So if you punch in a rare to disenchant, you'll get regal shards, and you can make regal orbs, and then you can use that orb to upgrade a magic to a rare, and you'll get a bunch of new modifiers with it. I have been disenchanting all my magics and any rares that I don't use so I can level up my stuff. However, I think now I'm actually going to start changing to selling magics. So I'll build up some gold and then buying the items I want from vendors. And then I will probably still disenchant rares. The other thing that I would probably suggest you always salvage is your socketed stuff. Okay, because you really want to be able to put sockets on your gear. So this stuff I wouldn't sell. It was a big mistake I made early on. I would salvage this from the salvage bench. You get the bench eventually. Just keep playing the campaign. Salvage it to get the materials from that, so you can socket your gear. Other things to note about items: if you press Alt on the item, you'll see an item level. As this level increases, or you'll get items dropping at a higher item level as you progress through harder areas in the game and have harder monsters. And this item level will be attached to the modifier level. So these are prefixes and suffixes. It's a little bit confusing, but it's just basically saying in the prefix, it's just like category of mods. Like the prefix is, there's a category of certain mods that can roll in that category. And the suffix is a category of mods that can roll in the suffix category. And then over the side, probably to the bane of a lot of PoE players, like veterans, is you have the tier level. And PoE 1, a low tier level was better. PoE 2, a low tier level is worse. So these are tier 2, which means they're not very good. And that's because we got a low item level. As the item level increases, you're hoping to see a higher tier levels here. So that's what you can be checking out for if you want to decide if you want to use an item. Check the item level, and then check the tiers of the mods, and then check if the mods suit the build that you're making. There's a lot of stuff going on here. I'm going to try to simplify for myself. I'll let you know how it goes. I'm just going to sell magics, disenchant rares, buy the gear that I need from vendors whilst I go through the campaign. Unless there is something super, super spicy that you spot that's really good for your build. Maybe for me, because I'm converting physical damage to cold damage, if I get a roll with a physical, a flat physical and a percentage physical, okay, I'll take that. Cool, I'll keep that. The other reason gold is also quite good, not only because you can buy the items you want from vendors, is you also get the ability to respec your passive tree. Eventually you'll find this dude called the Hooded One, and you can refund passives. And I'm going to completely refund my tree because I made the mistake. Look, I built into crit, and I don't think crit's very good for leveling because crit doesn't come online until late in the game, and I'm kind of really struggling. So I'm going to refund my whole tree. So I actually need a little bit of gold here, but you can refund passives, and this will just cost you gold. You just click on it. You just click on something to refund, and it'll show you how much gold it's going to cost to refund. You can also reallocate these nodes on the highway, which is really, really important. So if you're struggling to get a stat to use an item, you can just change to strength, dexterity, or intelligence. Really nice. Okay, the final thing I wanted to talk about is your Ascendancy Trials. This is how you unlock your advanced class for whatever you've picked. There are only 2 available per class in the early access, but there will be more later on. You just progress the campaign until you get to this area here. Do not worry about failing this your very first attempt. You get as many attempts as you like. You just go up to this lady here, and she'll actually give you the item again to start the trial. Now, I'm actually already in the middle of a trial because I wanted to show you something. Before I say that, so once you choose your advanced class, you can't go back on that decision. You're kind of locked in that. You need to re-roll a new character if you want to try the other one. You can respec the class once you're in there, but you can't choose another advanced class on the same character. You got to start all over again. Cool. The big thing that I didn't know with this that I think will help a lot of people out is it's a rogue light. What happens, you start on the left and you progress to the boss on the right. You choose which node you go to, and there's often pros and cons with each node that you do. So for example, this one says afflicts you with untouchable on entry. It says you're cursed and you have enfeeblable, and it tells you what this stuff does, right? And it tells you what the reward is. You get a bronze key from it. So I can go from the starting point to here, and now I only get these 2 choices here. The big tip for me was the name of these nodes actually indicate the activity involved, and you 100% will find activities that suit your build better. And as soon as I did this, I actually got to the end straight away, and then my game crashed, so I need to do it again. But so like Chalice Trial is you just have to survive the enemies. Really good for Monk. I do really well in this. I almost don't lose any honor doing this. Great. Hourglass. Oh, sorry. See, I got them around the wrong way. Sorry, that's Hourglass Trial, which I just explained. Chalice Trial is you got to fill the chalice by killing enemies. You got to go to these mobs and kill them as you go around. Escape Trial is very easy. You got to just connect the dots. You basically run between crystals on a timer and get through. So what I would suggest at the beginning is just play every type of activity, see what suits your build, and then start prioritizing as you go through, and you'll start getting through this. It is pretty challenging at first. And the other huge thing is resistances. I know for me, like I really like doing the Chalice Trial. However, I often get like those Medusa enemies that are resistant to cold. So I've got to switch up my, I put on some solar orbs and some orbs of storm to just literally deal with that enemy. And then I can go back to just freezing everything on everyone else. Or lightning. Cool. Good luck with the Ascendancies. Much fun. Can be a bit frustrating. Is pretty tough. But I think if you take into account your resistances and then learn which trial you perform best in, you will get through it. Okay, some rapid fire tips for you. I missed this really early on. But once you unlock the hooded one, when you come back into town, you can just click identify items, and it will literally identify all the items that you have on you without having to use the scroll of wisdom. I saw a lot of people complaining about this, like what's the point of the scroll of wisdom yet? As far as I'm kind of aware and understanding, and my sort of thoughts on it is like once you're out and about and you've completely stocked up, I often don't like to keep coming back to town like every 2 seconds because I've got so much loot. So I use scroll of wisdoms just to see if a rare's going to roll a mod that I actually want. And if it does it, then I can start prioritizing what I bring back. So I use Scroll of Wisdoms when I'm out and about and my inventory is completely full. And I find something, especially if it's like a rare, or if I've just got heaps of magics and I want to like pull some magics out and put some magics in, I'll use the Scroll of Wisdom out and about. And then the hooded one can identify items for you. Next quick fire thing is stash tabs. If you want to organize, oh, don't look at that. If you want to organize your stash tabs, you just right click on it and you can click what it should contain. And this will automatically sort it for you. So when you, maybe they're a bit busted because this is currency, sorry. So I've got this on currency. And so what that means, if I have any currency in my inventory and I control left click on it, it's going to go straight into this tab. Even if I'm in my other ones that are just completely balked, don't look at this. It will go into tab 4 and you can keep things a bit more organized. So that's how you organize tabs. You can also unlock guilds. So we have a guild and you get a guild stash, and anyone from your guild can put stuff in here and you can take it out. Really cool to play with friends, to have a guild and share your equipment. You might find something that's not useful for you but might be useful for your friends. I haven't looked at trading yet. You probably can just trade it with them too, but you can do guilds. The tricky thing is with the guilds is you have to buy a guild tab. So if you bought the early access, you get given some gold, and then I bought a tab for us so people can put stuff in there. That's part of the monetization with this game, is that you've got to pay for some things, and that's one of the things you have to pay for. Map icons, really quickly, you probably worked out it. You'll see that a lot of areas will have bosses or objectives in there. When you haven't completed it, it's lit up. And then once you complete it, it will go faded. So you can see in all these areas that I've gone through and make sure I've done every boss or every like side boss and completed it. So just make sure you go do that as you go through. It is really, really worth doing that, because these little symbols here that have the cross on them will give you, is it called a relic? They'll give you an item that you right click on it and it gives you a permanent increase. So you want to make sure that you're tracking down these other bosses that have permanent increases for you. So you're leveling up as you go through. Also with the map, one of the things I didn't notice immediately, especially if you just picked up the game, there is an underground area too. So if things don't quite look right to where you are, you can click the button on the right and toggle between above ground and underground, or you'll notice these little areas with a cave on them. If you click on them, it will take you underground as well. Finally, you want to have a look at your interface and just see if any options in here you want to apply. A lot of people muck around with the interface with PoE. Things that I enjoy having on is always show sockets. So this will then make sure we see sockets like this, so I can see this item has a socket on it. I also like to have my life and mana level above my own character, so you can put that on. If you want to have life and above enemies, you can put that on like directly above them. You can put that on too. I like to have my auras shown as an icon, and this puts the auras up in the top left-hand side of the screen, so you can see what buffs you have on at that time. So have a look at the UI menu. They're the ones that I just have on for the moment, and see if anything else appeals to you. There you have it, some of my advice, the top sort of 5 categories I think will help people in the first like 20 to 30 hours of playing the game. Hope that helps you. If it did help you, a like and a comment would be greatly appreciated. You can leave the comment part of Exile too if you don't know what else to say. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Happy grinding.